Welcome to Sleepy Dimensions, where dreams come to life. Tonight, we invite you to unwind, let go of the day's worries, and immerse yourself in a world of fantasy and comfort. In a land where the mountains touch the sky and rivers wove through the valleys like silver threads, there was a quiet, forgotten forest. Its name had faded from the lips of men, its paths overgrown with moss and shadow. The trees here were ancient, their bark etched with the passage of time, and the air was thick with the scent of pine and earth. But beneath the tranquil exterior of this woodland lay a tale, whispered by the wind and sung by the brooks, a tale of a man who had once been known, but was now little more than a memory. Long, long ago, before the forest had grown wild, there was a young man named Alaric. He was known in his village for his kindness, his gentle nature, and his deep love for the world around him. He would often wander into the woods, not out of necessity, but for the sheer joy of being amongst the trees and streams where he felt most alive. But Alaric had a secret, one that he kept even from his closest friends. He was not just a lover of nature, he was also a student of it. He had discovered, hidden within the ancient texts of his village's library, the secrets of the old ways, of magic. This was not the grand, dazzling magic of legends, but a quiet, subtle power woven into the very fabric of the world. Alaric had learned to speak to the wind, to listen to the whispers of the trees, and to call upon the spirits that dwelled in the stones and streams. One autumn evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, and the forest was bathed in the golden light of dusk, Alaric stood at the edge of a clearing, a small vial of clear liquid in his hand. He had spent months preparing this potion, carefully gathering each ingredient under the right phase of the moon, whispering the incantations as he mixed them together. The potion was meant to strengthen his connection to the forest, to allow him to see the spirits that guided the natural world. But Alaric, in his youthful excitement, made a small mistake. Just as he was about to drink the potion, he whispered the wrong word, a word of power that he did not fully understand. The air around him shimmered, and for a brief moment, everything seemed to slow. The trees leaned in as if to watch, the wind held its breath, and the shadows deepened. Then, the world snapped back into motion, but Alaric was no longer the same. He felt a change ripple through him, starting in his heart and spreading out to his fingertips. He dropped the vial, and it shattered on the ground, the liquid soaking into the earth. He gasped, clutching at his chest as the change took hold. His skin began to harden, turning a deep, bark-like brown, and his fingers lengthened, becoming gnarled and twisted like the roots of an ancient tree. His once bright eyes grew dark, reflecting the deep green of the forest. Alaric had become a creature of the woods, a monster, bound to the very land he had loved so dearly. Despair washed over him as he realized what had happened. In his arrogance, he had tampered with forces far beyond his control, and now he was cursed to live out his days in this monstrous form, hidden away from the world he had once known. The forest, which had once been his sanctuary, was now his prison. For years, Alaric wandered the woods, lost and alone. He watched as the seasons turned, the leaves falling and growing again, as the animals came and went, unaware of the creature that watched them from the shadows. The forest changed, slowly but surely, as the memory of the man he had been faded with each passing year. The curse that bound him was cruel and precise. Alaric could not speak his own name, nor could he reveal his true self to any who wandered into the forest. He could only watch and wait, hoping against hope that someone might one day come who could see beyond the twisted form he had become. But the years stretched on, and Alaric's hope began to wane. The village he had once called home was no more, swallowed by time and the relentless march of nature. The paths that had once led into the forest were overgrown, the landmarks forgotten. Few now ventured into the woods, and those who did never stayed long, for the forest had gained a reputation as a place of strange happenings and eerie silences. One evening, as the light of the setting sun filtered through the trees, painting the forest in hues of gold and amber, Alaric heard something he had not heard in many years: the sound of footsteps. Soft and hesitant, they approached along a forgotten trail, crunching through the fallen leaves. Curiosity stirred within him, and he moved silently through the underbrush, following the sound. He came upon a small clearing where the remains of an ancient stone well stood, its sides covered in moss and ivy. There, kneeling beside the well, was a young woman. She was dressed in simple clothes, her dark hair tied back in a loose braid. She was drawing water from the well, humming a soft tune to herself. Alaric watched her from the shadows, his heart aching with a longing he had not felt in years. He wanted to step forward, to speak to her, but the curse held him back. He knew that to reveal himself would only frighten her, and she would flee, just as others had before her. But the young woman did not seem afraid. She finished drawing her water and sat beside the well, looking around at the forest with a calm, thoughtful expression. She did not seem to be in a hurry to leave, and Alaric wondered what had brought her to this forgotten place. As the minutes passed, the woman took out a small piece of bread from her pack and began to eat, still humming her soft tune. There was something in her voice that stirred a memory deep within Alaric, a memory of a time long past, when he had wandered these woods as a man, not a monster. Before he could stop himself, Alaric took a step forward, his foot snapping a twig beneath it. The sound echoed through the clearing, and the woman looked up, her eyes wide. For a moment, Alaric feared she would flee, but instead, she simply stared at him, her gaze curious rather than frightened. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice steady. Alaric hesitated, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew he should stay hidden, but something in her voice drew him forward. Slowly, he stepped out from the shadows, revealing himself to her. The woman gasped, but she did not scream or run. Instead, she looked at him with a mixture of awe and sadness. "What are you?" she whispered, her voice filled with wonder. Alaric could not answer, for the curse had taken his voice, but he stepped closer, hoping that she could see the truth in his eyes. The woman stood, her gaze never leaving his. There was a long, heavy silence between them, filled only by the rustling of leaves and the distant call of a bird. Then, as if some understanding passed between them, the woman spoke again, her voice soft and full of compassion. "You were once a man, weren't you? A man who made a mistake." Alaric nodded, his eyes filling with tears. He had waited so long, endured so much. And now, finally, someone had seen him for who he truly was. The woman stepped closer, her hand reaching out to touch his gnarled, bark-like skin. "What is your name?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Alaric hesitated, the curse holding him back, but the woman's gaze was steady, her eyes filled with a kindness that he had not seen in years. Summoning all his strength, he looked into her eyes and willed her to understand. Alaric, she said softly, the name coming to her as if from a distant memory. Your name is Alaric. As the sound of his name left her lips, a powerful magic surged through the air, and Alaric felt the curse begin to lift. His twisted form began to change, the bark-like skin softening, his fingers shrinking back to their normal size. The darkness in his eyes faded, replaced by the bright, clear gaze he had once known. The woman watched in awe as Alaric transformed before her, his true self emerging from the shell of the monster he had become. When the change was complete, he stood before her, a man once more, his heart pounding with relief and gratitude. Tears streamed down Alaric's face as he looked at the woman who had saved him. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice filled with emotion. The woman smiled, her own eyes shining with tears. "You're free now, Alaric. The curse is broken." Alaric took her hand in his heart swelling with a joy he had not felt in years. The forest around them seemed to sigh with relief, the ancient trees swaying gently in the breeze as if celebrating the end of the long-held curse. Together, Alaric and the woman left the forest, walking side by side as the last light of the sun faded into twilight. The woods, once a place of sorrow and loneliness, were now filled with the promise of new beginnings, and Alaric knew that he would never again be alone. The name of the forest was forgotten by men, but the tale of Alaric and the woman who saved him lived on, whispered by the wind, sung by the brooks, and carried on the wings of birds. It was a tale of redemption, of the power of kindness. Now, let's move to the next story. In a land where rolling hills kissed the sky and rivers whispered secrets to the wind, there lived a young traveler named Elara. She was a gentle soul, with eyes like the deep forest glades and hair that shimmered like morning dew. Elara had spent many years wandering the quiet paths and hidden trails of the kingdom, always guided by the soft hum of adventure in her heart. One late afternoon, as the golden light of the setting sun bathed the world in warmth, Elara found herself on a journey to the king's city. The grand city was preparing for a festival, one that was spoken of in hushed, excited tones in every village and hamlet she passed through. It was said that this festival was a celebration of all things magical and wonderful, a gathering of stories, music, and joy. As she walked, the road beneath her feet turned from a worn dirt path to cobblestones, and soon she could see the faint glow of lanterns in the distance. The air was thick with the smell of baked bread and roasted chestnuts, and the sound of a lively fiddle drifted toward her on the breeze. Elara's steps grew slower, more deliberate, as she approached a small town nestled beside a sparkling stream. It was a quaint place, with ivy-covered cottages and flower boxes brimming with colorful blooms. At the heart of the town, just beside a stone bridge that arched gracefully over the water, stood a tavern with a sign that creaked gently in the evening breeze. The sign bore the name, The Restful Hearth, and it seemed to beckon Elara with promises of warmth and good company. As she pushed open the heavy wooden door, a wave of warmth enveloped her, carrying with it the comforting scent of spiced cider and the gentle crackle of a fire in the hearth. The tavern was a cozy haven, filled with soft amber light that flickered from candles and lanterns. Wooden beams overhead were adorned with dried herbs and bunches of lavender, giving the room a rustic charm. Alara found a seat near the fire, her weary feet grateful for the rest. The tavern was not overly crowded, but a few tables were occupied by travelers, their faces lit with the soft glow of contentment. A minstrel played a soothing melody on a lute in the corner, the notes weaving through the air like a lullaby. As she sipped on a cup of mulled wine, savoring the warmth that spread through her, Alara's eyes wandered around the room. Across the way, at a long oak table, sat a group of travelers who seemed as varied as the colors of the autumn leaves. There was a burly man with a laugh that rumbled like thunder, a slender woman with a soft, tinkling voice that reminded Alara of a babbling brook, and a pair of twins whose mirrored smiles were as bright as the sun. Their conversation was light and merry, filled with tales of far-off places and dreams of the festival ahead. Alara listened quietly, the gentle rise and fall of their voices like a thing balm to her soul. Eventually, one of the twins caught her gaze and waved her over with a friendly smile. "Come, join us," she said, her voice as warm as the fire crackling nearby. "No traveler should sit alone on such a fine evening." Alara hesitated for only a moment before rising from her seat and crossing the room. As she approached the table, the travelers made space for her, welcoming her into their circle as though she were an old friend. "I am Alara," she introduced herself softly, her voice carrying the lilting cadence of someone accustomed to speaking with the wind and the trees. "And we are the Fennel twins," one of the twins said with a playful bow. "This is Lyra, and I am Rian. Our merry companions here are Brom and Yvain." Alara smiled at each in turn, feeling a sense of ease settle over her. The evening passed in a gentle haze of stories and laughter, the kind that lingers long after the words have been spoken. The travelers spoke of the King's City, of the festival that awaited them with its bright banners and endless music, and of the magic that seemed to hang in the air during such times. Brom, with his deep voice, told tales of the grand parade where creatures of legend would march in harmony, and Yvain, with her delicate features, whispered of the secret gardens that only opened their gates during the festival, where rare flowers bloomed beneath the light of the moon. Alara found herself lost in the rhythm of their words, her heart swelling with anticipation for what lay ahead. It felt as though she had known these travelers for much longer than a single evening, as though they had been woven into the fabric of her journey long before she had set foot on this path. As the night grew late and the fire in the hearth dwindled to embers, the group decided to retire for the evening. The Fennel twins shared a room, as they always did, and Brom and Yvain bade Alara a kind goodnight before disappearing up the stairs. Alara was given a small room at the back of the tavern, where a soft feather bed awaited her. The window beside the bed was slightly ajar, allowing the cool night breeze to drift in, carrying with it the scent of the nearby stream and the whisper of leaves rustling in the darkness. She lay down, her body sinking into the plush mattress, and closed her eyes. As she drifted toward sleep, she thought of the festival, of the new friends she had made, and of the journey still ahead. There was a sense of peace that settled over her, a deep and abiding comfort that came from knowing that she was exactly where she was meant to be. In the morning, they would continue their journey together, a small band of travelers bound by shared dreams and the promise of a magical festival. But for now, in the quiet stillness of the night, Alara let herself be lulled into a dreamless sleep, cradled by the gentle embrace of the restful hearth and the warmth of new-found companionship. Now, let's move to the next story. In a world where ancient trees touched the heavens and rivers sang in harmony with the wind, there existed a forest so old and so mysterious that it had been named Dreamwood. The legends spoke of it in hushed tones, saying that within its emerald depths lay secrets known only to the elves, the eldest and wisest of all beings. It was said that Dreamwood was a place where time flowed differently, where the boundaries between reality and dreams blurred, and where those who ventured too far might never return, forever lost in its enchanting embrace. The adventuring party that sought entry into Dreamwood was as diverse as the land itself. There was Auric, the brave and noble knight whose heart was as steadfast as the oaths he had sworn. Lyora, the quick-witted and nimble rogue who moved as silently as a shadow. Thandor, the towering warrior with a gentle soul hidden beneath his formidable exterior. And Seraphina, the mysterious sorceress with eyes like the night sky, filled with stars and secrets. Their journey had begun in a small village on the edge of the forest, where the villagers whispered of a queen who ruled Dreamwood with a wisdom that spanned millennia. It was said that she was immortal, her beauty untouched by time, and that she possessed knowledge of the past, present, and future. To meet her was to gaze upon the very essence of the forest, to understand the world in a way few ever could. The party had traveled far, through treacherous mountains and across vast plains, until they stood at the edge of Dreamwood. The forest loomed before them, its trees towering and ancient, their leaves shimmering with a silvery light that seemed to come from within. The air was thick with the scent of earth and moss, and the sounds of the forest were unlike anything they had ever heard. A symphony of birdsong, rustling leaves, and the soft murmur of water flowing somewhere deep within. As they stepped into Dreamwood, a sense of awe washed over them. The light beneath the canopy was dappled and soft, casting everything in a gentle glow. It was as if the forest was alive, breathing in rhythm with their own hearts. The path ahead of them was narrow and winding, barely visible beneath the thick carpet of fallen leaves, yet it seemed to beckon them forward, guiding them deeper into the heart of the forest. Hours passed, or perhaps days. Time in Dreamwood was elusive, slipping through their fingers like sand. They walked in silence, each of them lost in their thoughts, until they reached a clearing where the trees parted to reveal a shimmering lake. The water was so clear that it reflected the sky above like a mirror, and at its center was an island, small and serene, with a single majestic tree rising from its heart. On the shore of the lake stood a figure, draped in robes of flowing white that seemed to merge with the mist that curled around her feet. Her hair was a cascade of silver, shimmering like moonlight, and her eyes held the wisdom of ages. This was the Queen of Dreamwood, the immortal ruler of the forest, and as she gazed upon the adventurers, they felt a sense of peace settle over them, as if all their worries and fears had been washed away. "Welcome," she said, her voice soft and melodic. like the whisper of wind through the leaves. You have journeyed far to reach this place, and your hearts are pure. Dreamwood has recognized you, and I, its queen, have come to greet you. Arik stepped forward, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword, though he had no intention of drawing it. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing deeply, "we seek your wisdom and guidance. We have heard tales of Dreamwood, of its magic and mysteries, and we wish to understand its secrets." The queen smiled, and it was as if the entire forest smiled with her. Dreamwood is a place of dreams and memories where the past and future meet. It is a reflection of the soul, a mirror in which you may see the truth of your heart's desire. But its secrets are not easily given, for they are not meant for all. Leora, ever the skeptic, tilted her head slightly. "And what must we do to earn these secrets, Your Majesty?" The queen's gaze shifted to Leora, her eyes twinkling with ancient knowledge. "You must surrender your fear, your doubt, and your need for control. In Dreamwood, one must trust in the path that is laid before them, for it will lead you to where you need to be, not where you wish to go." Thandor, who had always felt a deep connection to the natural world, nodded slowly. "We are ready, Your Majesty. We have come this far together, and we will see this journey through, no matter where it leads." The queen turned her gaze to Seraphina, who had remained silent, her eyes fixed on the lake. "And you, Seraphina," the queen said gently, "what is it that you seek in Dreamwood?" Seraphina looked up, her eyes reflecting the light of the setting sun. "I seek understanding, Your Majesty, of the magic that flows through this world, of the forces that shape our destiny. I seek to learn, to grow, to become more than what I am." The queen stepped forward, her feet barely touching the ground as she moved toward Seraphina. She reached out and took Seraphina's hand in her own, her touch as light as a feather. "Then you shall have what you seek, my child, for in Dreamwood, all things are possible for those who believe." With that, the queen turned and began to walk across the water, her steps creating ripples that danced across the surface of the lake. The adventurers followed her, their feet finding solid ground on the water as if they were walking on air. As they reached the island at the center of the lake, they felt a warmth envelop them, a sense of belonging that was both comforting and profound. The tree that stood at the center of the island was unlike any they had ever seen. Its trunk was wide and gnarled, its bark smooth and glowing with an inner light. The branches stretched out like arms, cradling the sky above, and its leaves shimmered with 1,000 colors, shifting and changing with every breath of wind. The queen led them to the base of the tree, where a soft bed of moss awaited them. "Rest here," she said, her voice a soothing lullaby. "Close your eyes and let Dreamwood show you its secrets. There is nothing to fear here, for you are safe within its embrace." The adventurers lay down on the moss, their eyes growing heavy as they listened to the gentle rustle of leaves and the distant hum of the forest. As they drifted into sleep, they felt a deep connection to the land around them, as if they had become one with Dreamwood itself. In their dreams, they saw visions of the past, of the world as it had been before time began. They saw the birth of the forest, the first seeds planted by hands long forgotten, and the growth of the trees that had stood for eons. They saw the elves, ageless and wise, tending to the land with care and reverence, their lives intertwined with the very essence of the forest. And then they saw the queen, young and radiant, standing at the heart of Dreamwood, her hands outstretched as she welcomed the first travelers into her realm. They saw her journey through the ages, her wisdom growing with each passing year, until she became the guardian of the forest, the keeper of its secrets. When they awoke, the sun was rising, casting a golden light across the lake. The queen stood before them, her eyes filled with compassion and understanding. "You have seen the truth of Dreamwood," she said softly. "You have glimpsed the heart of this land, and in doing so, you have become part of it. Your journey is not yet over, but you are stronger for having walked this path." Auric, Leora, Thandor, and Seraphina rose from their resting place, their hearts filled with gratitude and wonder. They knew that they had been forever changed by their time in Dreamwood, that the forest had shown them a glimpse of something greater than themselves. "Thank you, Your Majesty," Auric said, bowing deeply. "We will carry the wisdom of Dreamwood with us, wherever our journey may lead." The queen smiled, her expression serene. "Go now, my children, and remember what you have learned. Dreamwood will always be with you, no matter how far you may roam." With that, the adventurers turned and began to walk back across the lake, their hearts light and their spirits lifted. As they reached the shore, they looked back one last time, but the island was gone. The lake once again still and quiet. They knew then that they had been blessed with a rare and precious gift, one that would guide them on their future quests. And as they continued their journey, they felt the presence of Dreamwood in every step, a reminder that they were never truly alone, for they had touched the heart of the forest and found their place within it. Now, let's move to the next story. Deep within the heart of the Whispering Woods, where the trees grew tall and ancient, and the sunlight danced upon the emerald leaves, there existed a place known only to those who dared to wander far from the beaten path. This was the mysterious forest, a realm shrouded in secrets and wonder, where the trees whispered forgotten tales and the wind carried the laughter of unseen creatures. But most intriguing of all were the talking animals, beasts with voices as gentle as the breeze or as booming as thunder. Creatures wise beyond their years, who lived in harmony with the forest itself. The story begins with a young girl named Lila, who had always been fascinated by the stories of the Whispering Woods. She lived in a small village on the edge of the forest, where the elders often warned of the dangers that lurked within its shadowy depths. But Lila was different from the other villagers. She felt a strange connection to the woods, as if it were calling to her, urging her to uncover its secrets. One day, after a particularly vivid dream of the forest, Lila decided that she could no longer ignore the pull she felt. She packed a small bag with food, water, and her favorite book of stories, and set off at dawn, determined to find the mysterious forest. As she ventured deeper into the Whispering Woods, the trees seemed to close in around her, their branches intertwining like the fingers of old friends. The air grew cooler, and a faint mist began to rise from the forest floor, giving the woods an ethereal, otherworldly quality. Lila walked for hours, her senses alert to every rustle of leaves, every distant call of a bird. She had no map, but something within her seemed to guide her steps. just as the sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the forest floor. Lila came upon a small clearing. In the center of the clearing stood a massive oak tree, its trunk so wide that it would have taken 10 men to encircle it with their arms. The tree's bark was rough and knotted, and its branches stretched high into the sky, disappearing into the thick canopy above. Lila approached the tree, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and fear. As she reached out to touch the bark, a deep, rumbling voice echoed through the clearing. "Who dares to enter the heart of the mysterious forest?" Startled, Lila took a step back, her eyes wide as she looked around for the source of the voice. But there was no one there, only the great oak tree standing silently before her. "I mean no harm," Lila said, her voice trembling slightly. "I've come seeking the wisdom of the forest." The tree's branches rustled, as if considering her words, and then the voice spoke again, this time softer, almost gentle. "Wisdom you seek? Then wisdom you shall find, if your heart is pure and your intentions true. But be warned, young one, the forest holds many secrets, and not all are meant to be uncovered." Lila nodded, her resolve firm. "I understand." The tree seemed to sigh, and then the ground beneath Lila's feet began to tremble. She gasped as a doorway slowly formed in the base of the oak tree, revealing a narrow passage leading downward into the earth. "Follow the path," the tree instructed, "and trust in the forest." With a deep breath, Lila stepped into the passageway, the cool earth closing around her as she descended. The tunnel was dimly lit by a soft, greenish glow that seemed to emanate from the roots of the tree, and as Lila walked, she felt a strange sense of peace wash over her, as if she were being welcomed by the forest itself. After what felt like hours, the passageway opened up into a vast underground cavern. Lila gasped in awe as she looked around. Above her, the roots of the oak tree formed a sprawling network that stretched across the ceiling, glowing softly in the darkness. The cavern was filled with strange, luminescent plants, their leaves shimmering with every color of the rainbow. But what caught Lila's attention most were the animals. They were gathered in a circle in the center of the cavern, creatures of all shapes and sizes, from tiny mice to majestic stags, and even a few creatures Lila had only heard of in legends. There was a fox with fur as white as snow, a bear with eyes as blue as the summer sky, and a great eagle with feathers that shimmered like gold. As Lila stepped closer, the animals turned to look at her, their eyes filled with a wisdom that was both comforting and intimidating. The fox was the first to speak, its voice soft and melodious. "Welcome, young one. We have been expecting you." Lila blinked in surprise. "You have?" The fox nodded. "The forest has spoken of your coming. You seek the wisdom of the mysterious forest, do you not?" "Yes," Lila replied, her voice filled with wonder. "But I don't understand. How can animals talk? How is any of this possible?" The bear chuckled, a deep, rumbling sound that echoed through the cavern. "In the mysterious forest, all things are possible. We are the guardians of this realm, and it is our duty to protect the secrets of the woods." The eagle spread its wings, and the cavern filled with a soft golden light. "But we are also here to guide those who seek the truth with a pure heart. The forest has chosen you, Lila, for a reason." Lila felt a warmth in her chest at the eagle's words but she was still unsure. What must I do? The fox stepped forward, its eyes meeting Lila's with a gaze that seemed to pierce her very soul. You must complete 3 tasks, it said. Each task will test your courage, your wisdom, and your kindness. Only then will you be granted the knowledge you seek. Lila nodded, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and fear. I'm ready. The first task, the fox explained, was to find the lost song of the nightingale, a melody that had been forgotten by the forest and was said to hold the power to heal even the deepest wounds. Lila was given a small silver flute and instructed to play it at the edge of the forest, where the nightingale was said to reside. As she emerged from the underground cavern and made her way to the edge of the forest, the air grew still, and the world seemed to hold its breath. Lila raised the flute to her lips and began to play, the notes echoing through the trees like a gentle breeze. For a moment, there was silence, and then, from the shadows, a beautiful melody began to rise. A song so pure and haunting that it brought tears to Lila's eyes. The nightingale, a small, delicate bird with feathers the color of twilight, appeared before her, its voice intertwining with the notes of the flute. Together, they played the lost song, and as they did, the forest seemed to come alive with a new energy. The trees swayed, the flowers bloomed, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of healing. When the song ended, the nightingale bowed its head in thanks, and Lila felt a sense of peace settle over her. She had completed the first task. The second task was to climb the tallest tree in the forest, where a single golden leaf was said to hold the wisdom of the ages. The tree was ancient, its bark rough and gnarled, but Lila did not hesitate. She began to climb, her hands and feet finding purchase on the twisted branches as she ascended higher and higher. The climb was difficult, and there were moments when Lila felt she could not go on. But each time she faltered, she remembered the words of the fox and the other animals, their faith in her, and it gave her the strength to continue. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Lila reached the top of the tree. There, nestled among the branches, was a single golden leaf. It shimmered in the sunlight, its surface etched with symbols that Lila could not understand, but somehow felt she knew. She carefully plucked the leaf from the branch and held it close, feeling a surge of wisdom and understanding flow through her. The third and final task was the most challenging of all. Lila was to face the guardian of the forest, a creature of great power and mystery, who would test her kindness and compassion. The guardian, the fox explained, had not been seen for many years, and it was said that only those with a pure heart could find it. Lila set off into the heart of the forest, her heart filled with a mixture of fear and determination. She walked for hours, the forest growing darker and more mysterious with each step. Finally, she came upon a small, hidden glade, where the air was thick with magic. In the center of the glade stood the guardian, a magnificent creature with the body of a lion, the wings of an eagle, and the eyes of an ancient, wise being. The guardian looked at Lila with a gaze that seemed to see into her very soul. "Why have you come, child?" the guardian asked, its voice deep and resonant. Lila took a deep breath and stepped forward. "I seek the wisdom of the mysterious forest," she said, her voice steady. "I have completed the first 2 tasks, and now I am here to face you." The guardian regarded her for a long moment, then nodded. "You have shown courage and wisdom, but now you must prove your kindness. There is a creature in this forest, lost and afraid. Find it, and show it compassion, and you will have passed the final test." Lila nodded and turned to leave the glade, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. She searched the forest for what felt like hours, her eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of the creature. Finally, she heard a faint, whimpering sound coming from a nearby thicket. As she approached, she saw a small, frightened fawn trapped in a tangle of thorns. Its eyes were wide with fear, and its body trembled with exhaustion. Lila's heart went out to the poor creature, and she knelt beside it, carefully freeing it from the thorns. "It's okay," she whispered, her voice gentle. "You're safe now." The fawn looked up at her, its eyes filled with gratitude, and Lila felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had done it. She had shown kindness and compassion, just as the guardian had asked. When she returned to the glade, the guardian was waiting for her. It nodded in approval, its eyes filled with a deep, ancient wisdom. "You have passed the final test," the guardian said. "You have shown courage, wisdom, and kindness. The forest has chosen well." As the guardian spoke, a soft, golden light began to fill the glade, and Lila felt herself being enveloped in its warmth. She closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, she was standing in the underground cavern, surrounded by the talking animals. The fox stepped forward, a proud smile on its face. "You have completed the 3 tasks," it said. "The wisdom of the mysterious forest is yours." Lila felt a surge of understanding flow through her, and she knew that she had been changed forever by her journey. She had come seeking wisdom, and she had found something far greater, a deep connection to the forest and its inhabitants, and a sense of purpose that would guide her for the rest of her life. As she prepared to leave the mysterious forest, the animals gathered around her, their eyes filled with a warmth that Lila knew she would carry with her always. "Thank you," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "I will never forget what you have taught me." The fox nodded, its eyes shining with a light that seemed to come from within. "Remember, Lila, the forest will always be with you, wherever you go. And if ever you are in need, simply listen to the whispering of the trees, and we will be there." With a final nod, Lila turned and made her way back to the surface, the light of the forest guiding her steps. As she emerged from the oak tree and into the clearing, she felt a sense of peace and contentment settle over her. The mysterious forest had revealed its secrets to her, and Lila knew that she would carry its wisdom with her for the rest of her days.